As countries begin to take the effects of climate change more seriously, a green revolution is slowly taking hold. The pursuit of a more sustainable future is also allowing countries and companies the opportunity to reset the playing field for technological and economic prowess. About an hour's drive from Beijing city center, in the west of the Chinese capital, a sprawling industrial park from the past is looking a little futuristic. Now, this used to be the site of the old Shougang factory, but this steel-making facility has now been transformed into a recreational space with green sites and eateries as well. It is also one of the sites for the Winter Olympics that's being held here next year. But before then, I'm told that it's also being used to test some of China's most advanced technology. That includes a whole range of driverless vehicles. China is looking to use such cars and shuttles to transport visitors, as it hopes to make the Winter Olympics the most technology-driven games in history. And I'm looking to go for a spin in one of them. 你好，
这里是百度的无人驾驶汽车可以进行一个园区的试乘。
哦，是可以体验的。
对。
Since May, the public has been able to hitch a ride in one of these autonomous vehicles, developed by Chinese internet search engine giant Baidu, the first paid driverless service in China and seen as a milestone in commercialization. Using a mobile app, passengers fill in their personal details and book a ride.
好的，我们现在已经下单成功了。您看前面现在是有排队的人数和已经等待的时间。显示啊，您看现在已经有对，已经有车辆进行接单了。When the car pulls up at the pickup point, I scanned a QR code to unlock the door. 你好。 你好。
谢谢。
祝您体验愉快。
好的。
好，请系好安全带。
好的。 The car won't set off until passengers fasten their seatbelts. And then all it takes is to press start before I'm on my way. Now, I've been in other driverless vehicles before, but this is the first time that I've sat in one without a safety driver at the wheel, and I must say that it does take a little bit of getting used to. But I've also been told that these cars are only allowed to travel at a maximum 40 kilometers per hour, which is relatively slow compared to cars on normal roads outside. There is a Baidu officer on board, but he's not there to control the car and only provides assistance if it's needed. Everything else is monitored remotely. A ride costs up to $5 per trip.
刚才就是遇到一个，就是那个行人前面骑那个自行车，在骑自行车，我还担心，然后结果他真的还速度还慢下来了，然后我感觉说第一次，然后就是感受到，然后这个就是无人驾驶车还是挺神奇，也挺安全。
Baidu is one of many Chinese companies that are accelerating efforts to deploy their driverless vehicles on the country's roads. So far, it has 500 of such robo-taxis in operation, and there are plans to ramp this up to 3,000 over the next 3 years in 30 cities. This as Chinese authorities announced in January a new law that will allow testing on highways. The goal is also to scale up production and have half of new cars on the road with partial self-driving features by 2025. The haste is motivated by not just industrial competition.
Chinese cities still have some of the worst congestion, some of the worst pollution, and some of acute urban transport problems anywhere in the world. And we know that in theory, autonomous vehicles, especially when they're combined with electrification, offer real solutions in terms of safety, efficient use of the transport system. Having said that, I think we need to recognise that these benefits, they're only going to come when we've got AVs on the road at scale. We mean at least 60 to 70% of the overall traffic flow is autonomous.
The technology could also help tackle China's shrinking workforce due to a rapidly aging population and falling birth rate by making labor-intensive jobs more productive. As the COVID-19 pandemic hit early last year, China's largest food delivery platform Meituan began deploying its driverless vehicles in Beijing's suburban Shunyi district. Delivering groceries to 3 residential communities, this marked its first such trial on public roads, also meant to reduce human contact amid transmission fears. The project has continued even as life has returned to normal in China, and the vehicles are now deployed to 20 residential communities in the district. Close to 40,000 orders have been completed, and there are plans to expand the trial in the coming months.
Now, we've been following this driverless vehicle around the neighborhood as it's made its deliveries, and these, as you can see, are actual roads, and so it's had to maneuver unexpected situations. For example, coming up, we're about to overtake a car that has parked on the side of the road, and pedestrians as well. It's also had to stop at red traffic lights on its own.
But moving towards automation is not about replacing human riders, says Han Xiao, who heads the operations of Meituan's autonomous delivery unit. Vehicles have to be accompanied for now by riders who often make the last mile delivery to people's doorsteps.
我们车其实比骑手小哥这个车更有优势，在哪儿呢？一目了然。载重上来讲，我们小车载着更沉，200公斤以上。那容积来讲，相当于它的接近10倍了。我们更多解决是小哥的痛点，沉的、重的啊，包括一些恶劣天气，我们可以持续的出车。然后未来的话，我们比如说恶劣天气下涉水深的、有危险的，由我们车来去做啊。
But even as China's development of autonomous vehicles has entered the fast lane, analysts like Kevin Lee, who study the Chinese automotive market, think it will still be some time before we see fully driverless vehicles on the roads.
So, Kevin, we're here at a very typical Beijing road. We see pedestrians, bicycles, cars. How difficult will it be to deploy autonomous vehicles under such conditions?
It's quite challenging if you deploy directly for the autonomous driving cars here, because they are mixed together with the traffic. I think this road probably will be the final stage for deploying autonomous driving. By that time, the people will know how to interact with them.
But will our roads look different?
Yeah, the roads will be more autonomous driving friendly style. And the lamps, cameras will be also those signs, the poles will be also upgraded to a more intelligent level with some communication modules can directly communicate with the cars and even to the non-autonomous driving vehicles, to the pedestrians, to let them understand how to interact with autonomous driving cars.
Obstacles that Chinese tech companies will have to navigate as they seek to reset the playing field in the race to the future.
Electric vehicles are the buzzwords in Indonesia these days. The government of President Joko Widodo has identified EVs as a key industry that will give Indonesia a jump start to become a developed nation in the next 25 years.
Self-employed Ahmad loves riding on his electric motorcycle. The 35-year-old is among a small but growing number of electric motorcycle owners in Jakarta, the Indonesian capital notorious for its choking traffic. Ahmad paid about $1,200 for his electric bike, which does not differ much from that of his old conventional bike, which was powered by a combustion engine. After going electric for 2 years, he's convinced that it was the right move to switch.
Pengacasan itu hanya Rp2.000 Pak, per hari. Jadi ya lebih murah motor listrik ketimbang motor bahan bakar lah. Jadi untuk perawatan per bulannya itu kita ditiadakan. Jadi kayak semacam pergantian oli dan servis rutin itu ditiadakan.
Converting more Indonesians to embrace electric vehicles like how Ahmad did is key to the government's ambitious plan to turn Indonesia into a regional EV hub. With more than 133 million vehicles on its roads, EVs are also seen as a solution to Indonesia's chronic air pollution. Authorities have set a target to produce nearly 2.5 million electric motorcycles by 2030. For cars, the target is to see at least 600,000 units on the roads.
This is the first time I'm riding an electric motorcycle, and it's a unique experience. There is instant torque when accelerating. The motor is only one moving part, and there's absolutely no vibrations.
Local motorcycle maker VR introduced Indonesia's first electric two-wheeler in 2017. With its head start in electric bikes, VR is hoping to challenge the dominance of Japanese brands such as Honda and Yamaha in the domestic motorcycle market.
Since 2016, we have predicted that in the future, electric vehicles will be an alternative to replace internal combustion engine vehicles. So we will focus more on developing electric vehicles with various needs and functions.
The company is also collaborating with ride-hailing giant Grab to build an EV ecosystem in Indonesia. Grab has pledged to have an electric vehicle fleet of 26,000 by 2025.
We are also actively inviting and embracing other digital platforms, Masaipo, to collaborate with us. So it doesn't just stop with us. We have started with Lazada, one of the e-commerce platforms. Our two-wheels EVs are also utilized by Lazada for their last-mile deliveries in Jabodetabek.
But electric vehicles are still in their infancy in Indonesia. Charging stations that power the machines are still not yet widely available. The Energy and Mineral Resources Ministry is responsible for the development of the infrastructure. The ministry aims to set up nearly 32,000 charging stations for electric cars and 67,000 battery swapping stations for electric motorcycles.
Kementerian SDM mendorong badan usaha swasta maupun PLN gitu ya, maupun BUMN yang lain untuk menyiapkan yang namanya charger listrik itu untuk kendaraan listriknya. Nanti kan juga ada rencana untuk seluruh mobil dinas ya, kendaraan dinas menggunakan kendaraan listrik nih, udah pasti di parkiran kantor pemerintahan pasti dipasang juga yang namanya charger listrik ini.
Smelling the huge growth potential for EVs in Indonesia, international car brands are eager to help out with the government's push to build more charging stations.
This is an alternating current wall charger usually installed in homes. It can charge an electric vehicle from 0 to 100% in about 7 hours. However, a charger using direct current can fully charge a vehicle in just about 1.5 hours.
Hyundai has committed 100 of such stations across Indonesia. In 2019, the South Korean manufacturer announced that it would invest about $1.5 billion to build an electric vehicle plant in Indonesia.
Orang saat dulu ditawarkan mobil automatic transmission, ada kekhawatiran. Tapi sekarang ada yang mau menolak mobil transmission automatic. Masa itu adalah sama dengan kondisi transisi tersebut. Dari manual ke matic, dari mobil engine combustion yang biasa menjadi electric vehicle.
The price of an electric car has reduced significantly over the years, but is still more expensive than a conventional four-wheeler. The battery makes up a large chunk of the cost. Analysts said fiscal and non-fiscal incentives are needed to get more electric vehicles out of the showrooms. But prices are expected to continue to head south and reach parity at some point.
The cost of battery will decrease around 7% per year thanks to technology improvements. The second biggest unlock for Indonesia is to set up the end-to-end supply chain domestically so that we can produce vehicles in Indonesia instead of importing them.
As it seeks to have more EVs on its roads, Indonesia also wants to have a bigger say on the price of batteries. With the world's largest reserves of nickel, which is used to produce the lithium batteries for electric vehicles, the country aims to become a key player in the global supply chain of EV batteries. The nickel advantage will give Indonesia a jump-start in the regional EV race against rivals like Thailand. But green activists warn that if it's not planned well, Indonesia's electric ambitions could end up causing more harm to the environment and society.
The whole life cycle of the battery has to really be considered. It's not only produce and produce, attract investment, how the waste of the battery will be treated. And it shouldn't be jeopardizing the environment. There is no business on the dead planet.
For now, going green appears to be good business for governments around the world. In the UK, the government there wants to create a new growth momentum through what it called a green industrial revolution.
In the United Kingdom, the government is clear. In order to tackle climate change, Britain must undergo a green revolution. Ambitious targets have been set to cut greenhouse gas emissions in order to protect the planet. And with the COP26 climate summit scheduled for Glasgow later this year, the pressure is on to prove Britain has green credentials. On the northwest coast of Wales sits the island of Anglesey. It's a haven for wildlife, awash with natural beauty, and home to the Menai Science Park, where companies are working to protect the area from future environmental threats. David Griffith heads up one of them, Mentor Mon. His team is exploring green ways to cut vehicle carbon emissions, and he has the port of Holyhead in his sights. The port is a key commercial and travel hub, carrying more than 2 million passengers between Wales and Ireland each year. But the tens of thousands of vehicles that run on petrol or diesel and pass through it pour out greenhouse gases day in, day out. David thinks his organisation can change that by building a hydrogen fuel hub. He hopes businesses will convert their vehicle fleets and soon fill up on environmentally friendly hydrogen instead of fossil fuels.
What hydrogen is essentially is a way of storing power. What's important here is that we're looking to produce green hydrogen. So as opposed to blue hydrogen, which maybe is produced using natural gas, we hopefully, the intention is to use power from renewable sources to produce the hydrogen.
The team has earmarked a site at Park Cubby, less than 3 kilometres away for the build. A ferry operator and a haulage company have already showed interest in switching to hydrogen fuel. And after the government dropped a surprise pledge of millions of pounds to help get the idea off the ground, the hydrogen hub could be a reality much sooner than David thought.
We received money from the Welsh Government to do a further technical study into the feasibility of creating a hydrogen hub in Holyhead. If we can create green jobs, if we can create green energy, but also create income to carry on the type of activity we have been involved in the last 25 years, I think we'd be onto something special there.
The threat of climate change is real. Sea levels are rising. Here in Anglesey, some estimates predict we could see an uplift of more than 50 centimetres in the next century and higher elsewhere in the British Isles, leaving coastal areas at risk. Efforts are being made to try to protect those living in danger zones, but collaboration across industry and the public is needed, experts say, to really see change. And the decisions made today will influence how the UK powers its future. That is Wilver, a nuclear power plant that was once a hive of electrical production. But after the last reactor was turned off in 2015, it's laid dormant ever since. There are now hopes, though, that this site could be revived, with plans being submitted to turn it into the first hybrid zero-carbon power plant in the United Kingdom. The proposals would transform the area into another renewable energy hub.
It would have 12 individual reactors rather than 2, plugged into a system that those behind the idea say would ensure continuous green power production 24 hours a day.
Our big problem at the moment in the UK as we advance our renewable generation resources is that we encounter periods when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine. And at the moment, we're turning on the gas plants and sometimes turning on all the coal plants as well, which defeats the whole purpose of renewable energy if that's what you have to do. So we need to come up with ways, zero carbon or low carbon ways of complementing renewables to provide the security of supply and the assurance of supply and the higher security that a country such as the UK needs.
There have been protests in the past over the safety of nuclear power production on Anglesey, concerns highlighted by global crises, including the Fukushima disaster. But the World Nuclear Association claims the benefits still outweigh the perceived risks.
When you look at the statistics in terms of how well nuclear plants are operated, and put it particularly in context with the huge threat there is not only from climate change, which is to which coal, gas and oil power stations have a large responsibility, but also the air pollution that they create as well. These have very harmful impacts on people's health around the world. So it's not climate change that might be beginning to happen now and is a threat really for the coming decades. There's a threat from air pollution from fossil fuel power generation that is very present and has had a historic effect.
Another plan to build one of the world's biggest tidal energy projects has ruffled some feathers. South Stack, an island off Anglesey's northwest coast, is a popular destination for birdwatchers. The Royal Society for the Protection of Birds says the installation of turbines to harness energy from the waters below could lead to swathes of guillemot and razorbill populations here being lost. The developer, Menter Mon, says a phased approach will be taken, deploying turbines slowly and monitoring any impacts they may have on bird colonies in the area. The initiative has the support of the Anglesey County Council too, which wants to promote the area where unemployment is high as an energy island.
Here in the port we had a large marine yard which used to employ about 500 people. That's all gone years ago. So traditional employment now no longer seems to exist, and there are retail jobs here, but you do need a mix as well. So we're trying to attract industry, new exciting industry for the future, to come to Anglesey, and we welcome it with open arms. Please come here, please invest in Anglesey, create high-tech jobs which are needed.
The UK government's pledge to bring all greenhouse gas emissions to net zero by 2050 is more than an environmental target. Hopes are being pinned on green industries such as those in Anglesey to provide a launchpad for future job creation and growth.